The story begins in a hospital where a newly hired security guard named George starts his very first night shift. As he settles in, a senior guard named Emma takes him on a tour of the building. Along the way, she warns him to be prepared for the strange and frightening things that supposedly happen there after dark. Later that night, a car arrives outside the hospital and someone rings the bell. George heads downstairs to open the door, but the moment he steps out of the elevator, he finds a wrapped corpse lying right in front of him. Assuming it was left there by ambulance staff, he decides to move the body to the morgue. Everything seems normal until the corpse suddenly starts moving.
Are you all right?
Terrified, George runs back to his office and calls Emma for help. Emma assumes he is simply imagining things, but when they check the security cameras, the body can clearly be seen wandering through the hospital hallway in a disturbingly unnatural way. Then, without warning, the corpse appears right in front of George and scares him out of his mind. But this is where the truth comes out. Emma is not actually a hospital security guard at all. She is part of a television crew for a popular prank show called Scare Campaign, a program that has been running for 5 years and has built a huge audience. The location is staged, the ghosts are actors, and hidden cameras are placed everywhere to capture genuine reactions from unsuspecting victims. The crew consists of Marcus, Dick, JD, Tani, Suze, and Ayako, who is currently playing the role of the terrifying corpse. The problem is that George is not as easy to scare as they expected. Instead of panicking, he suddenly pulls out a gun and prepares to shoot Ayako. The entire crew immediately goes into panic mode. Emma rushes in and stops George just before things take a disastrous turn. Fortunately, the gun turns out to be a toy. George only carries it because it makes him feel safer. In the end, the prank is a success, even though George is left so frightened that he completely loses control of himself. And that is Scare Campaign. The following day, the crew returns to the office and welcomes a new cast member named Abby, who will be playing the ghost in their next episode. As the show's director, Marcus oversees the entire production. While editing the previous episode, he carefully removes any footage showing George carrying the toy gun. Even if it was fake, showing it on television could still create problems. Despite that, Emma has made up her mind. The incident has convinced her that the show is becoming too dangerous. She worries that someday they might prank the wrong person. What if the next target is carrying a real weapon, or someone far more violent? Emma decides she wants to leave Scare Campaign for good. Marcus, who is both her boss and her former boyfriend, tries to change her mind. He asks her to stay for just one more episode, the final episode of Season 5. In return, he promises that afterward, they can finally leave television behind and start the theater group they have always talked about creating together. For the next episode, the crew chooses an abandoned psychiatric hospital called Grendel, a facility that has been closed since the 1990s. Before filming begins, their manager, Vicky, arrives with some troubling news. She tells them about a website called Max Freaks, a platform that has become increasingly popular because its content resembles Scare Campaign in some ways. The difference is that Scare Campaign creates horror pranks for television, while Max Freaks revolves around torture and murder videos posted online. According to Vicky, videos like these are attracting massive audiences, and those numbers keep growing. Max Freaks is believed to be a well-funded network of dangerous individuals, making them nearly impossible to track down. Vicky fears that Scare Campaign is starting to lose its edge. If they fail to evolve, the show could be overshadowed by Max Freaks and eventually disappear altogether. Because of that, she gives the team one final opportunity. They have a single episode left to prove they can create something darker, more intense, and more realistic than anything their competitors are producing. Soon, the crew finishes setting up hidden cameras and equipment throughout the Grendel facility. For this episode, Emma will play a nurse, Suze will act as a janitor, and Abby will take on the role of the ghost. Their setup is ambitious. The abandoned hospital is supposedly scheduled to reopen in a month as a children's therapy center. As part of the story, a job opening has been posted for a new security guard, and the target has already applied. Not long after, the victim arrives. His name is Rohan. Almost immediately, something feels off about him. His behavior is strange, and the crew soon learns that he once worked at this very hospital years ago. Emma is uneasy from the start, but she continues with the plan and introduces herself under the name Jennifer. The prank begins. Abby briefly appears in a second-floor window, while Suze deliberately creates unsettling disturbances to make the abandoned hospital feel even more haunted. Afterward, Emma escorts Rohan to her office. As they talk, Rohan reveals that he knows the building extremely well. He seems familiar with areas where troublesome children were once confined, as well as certain sections that were supposedly off-limits. The more he talks, the more unsettling he becomes. At one point, he stares silently at a framed photograph prepared by the crew, standing completely still while appearing to speak to himself. Watching his behavior, Emma becomes genuinely uncomfortable. She contacts Marcus and urges him to shut the production down before things get worse. Marcus, however, is not concerned. He believes Rohan is simply an unusual participant and insists that everything is still under control. He tells Emma not to worry and decides to continue with the show. Then the call ends. The prank continues as planned. Emma remotely opens the office door using a creaking sound effect, hoping to unsettle Rohan when he finds no one there. As expected, he leaves the office and begins wandering through the dark hallways. At the same time, Emma heads straight to the control room and once again pressures Marcus to shut the whole production down. Marcus refuses. From his perspective, Rohan is exactly what the show needs. His unusual personality makes everything feel more authentic, and Marcus believes he could turn the season finale into the darkest and most realistic episode they've ever produced. Meanwhile, Rohan continues deeper into the hospital. The crew unleashes every scare they have prepared. Lights flicker on and off. Curtains move on their own. Strange laughter echoes through the building. Suze throws a ball down the hallway. Then Abby suddenly appears in front of Rohan before disappearing down a nearby stairwell. Instead of running away, Rohan chases after her. The pursuit leads him to a storage room where he encounters a rocking toy horse moving by itself. Moments later, Abby appears again to deliver the next scare. But something goes horribly wrong. The situation becomes even worse because Tanya is also inside the room, secretly filming the entire scene. Watching everything unfold through the cameras, Emma is horrified. She grabs a screwdriver for protection and rushes toward the storage room. When she arrives, the scene is a nightmare. Tanya is hanging lifelessly, and Abby's body has been thrown out through a window. Back in the control room, Marcus sees Rohan moving through the building on the security monitors and urgently tells Emma to get out of there. It is then that Marcus finally reveals the truth about Rohan. Not only did Rohan once work at Grendel Hospital, but he was also a former patient who had committed serious crimes there in the past. Marcus knew about his history, but he never imagined things would spiral this far out of control. Terrified, Emma flees toward the lower floors. At one point, Rohan seems to vanish completely. The reason soon becomes clear. He has been destroying the security cameras, cutting off the crew's ability to track his movements. Eventually, Emma finds Suze and tells her what happened to Abby and Tani. Before they can react, Rohan suddenly appears. This time, Suze becomes his next victim. Now completely panicked, Emma runs to the kitchen in search of JD. She manages to reach the door, but it sticks for a few terrifying moments. That delay gives Rohan enough time to catch up. Along the way, he finds an axe and uses it to pursue her. Fortunately, Emma manages to get inside and slam the door shut before he can reach her. For a brief moment, they finally have a chance to breathe. Marcus assures them that Vicky has been contacted and that the police will be called shortly. But before any help can arrive, their communications suddenly begin malfunctioning. Then the nightmare escalates once again. Rohan appears inside the control room and brutally attacks Marcus and Dick, leaving the remaining survivors with nowhere left to run. At this point, only Emma and JD appear to be left alive. Determined to escape, they make their way to the van. Emma keeps her screwdriver close, using it as her only weapon. Unfortunately, the vehicle keys are nowhere to be found. JD decides to retrieve the spare key himself and tells Emma to stay inside the van with the doors locked. For a brief moment, it seems like they finally have a chance to get away. Then everything changes. Without warning, Rohan suddenly emerges from the back seat.
Come on.
Miss Akata.
Startled and acting purely on instinct, Emma drives the screwdriver straight into his hand. And that is when the biggest twist so far is revealed. None of it was real. The entire crew had secretly been working together the whole time, and Emma had unknowingly become the true star of the final episode. Rohan was never a murderer. He was a hired actor. The surviving crew members were actors as well, and every death had been carefully staged to create the ultimate horror scenario. The concept for the season finale was simple. A television crew chooses the wrong victim, and everything spirals out of control. Emma's genuine reactions were meant to make the story feel even more believable. The only problem is that Emma had no idea she was part of the prank. Furious over the injury, Rohan shuts off the cameras inside the van and decides he has had enough of the production. But before anyone can process what just happened, a group of masked young people suddenly appears. Each one carries a camera with a knife attached to it. They are members of Max Freaks, and this time the violence is real. At last, the horrifying truth comes to light. The videos on the Max Freaks website were never staged. They have been murdering real people all along, and now they have begun hunting the members of Scare Campaign one by one. Meanwhile, Marcus remains completely unaware of the danger surrounding them. Believing everything is still part of a successful production, he becomes convinced that this will be the greatest episode the show has ever made. As Marcus prepares for the grand finale, Dick remains alone in the control room. While monitoring the screens, he notices masked figures appearing across multiple displays. Somehow, Max Freaks has gained access to their surveillance system. Before long, Dick becomes their next victim. At the same time, Emma discovers footage showing how the crew faked all of the earlier deaths. That is when she finally realizes the truth. She was the target all along. Feeling betrayed and humiliated, Emma becomes furious when she learns that everyone had been manipulating her without her knowledge. She removes her earpiece and decides to walk away from the show for good. Elsewhere, Marcus approaches the van and is shocked to discover that Rohan is genuinely dead. Moments later, he sees the masked members of Max Freaks and immediately runs back inside the building. By coincidence, Emma exits the building at the same time and runs into Marcus. Still believing she has been tricked, she lashes out at him. Marcus desperately tries to explain what really happened, but Emma no longer trusts anything he says. She even assumes that the masked intruders are simply more actors participating in his elaborate prank. That belief quickly falls apart. As the masked figures begin surrounding them and treating them with real violence, Emma finally realizes that they are facing a genuine threat. Strangely, before anything else happens, the attackers suddenly withdraw after receiving orders from their leader. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Emma and Marcus immediately begin searching for the remaining crew members. What they find is horrifying. JD is dead, stabbed in front of a camera. Abby, however, is nowhere to be found. When they review the recorded footage, they watch JD's murder unfold and discover that Abby has been abducted by Max Freaks. At this point, Marcus becomes convinced that someone on the inside must have betrayed them. As far as he is concerned, there is no way Max Freaks could have discovered the filming location without help from someone within the crew. Not long afterward, the leader of Max Freaks contacts them with a chilling message. If they want Abby alive, they must come to the control room. Emma and Marcus rush there immediately, hoping they are not too late. Instead, they are met with another horrifying scene. Suze has been hanged, and Dick's body is lying nearby. Moments later, every monitor in the control room suddenly switches to a broadcast from the leader of Max Freaks. Calm and completely unfazed, he thanks them for being such entertaining victims. He explains that Max Freaks does not create fake content. Their murders are real, and that reality is exactly why their audience keeps growing larger and larger. Then he reveals something even more disturbing. The idea to target the crew of Scare Campaign came from one of their own devoted fans. A fanatical supporter of Max Freaks specifically suggested turning the television crew into the next victims. Soon after, Abby appears on the screens. She is being buried alive. According to the broadcast, she has only 5 minutes left before she runs out of air. Fueled by panic and desperation, Emma grabs a large bladed tool she finds nearby, and she and Marcus immediately set out to rescue Abby. Along the way, they encounter one of the masked Max Freaks members. This time, Emma refuses to run. She fights back and manages to kill the attacker. With no time to waste, she and Marcus continue searching until they finally locate Abby's burial site. They dig frantically and manage to open the coffin just as Abby is beginning to suffocate. For a brief moment, it seems like they have won, but as the three of them prepare to escape, they discover that Max Freaks has already surrounded them. Then another shocking revelation comes to light. The man they have been speaking to is not the true leader of Max Freaks. The real mastermind has remained hidden the entire time. For reasons of his own, he decides to spare Emma's life. In fact, He offers her a place in whatever twisted project comes next. Emma is also given a choice. One of her companions can leave with her, the other must stay behind. She can save either Marcus or Abby. Faced with an impossible decision, Emma chooses Abby. Despite everything that has happened, she still has feelings for Marcus. Knowing she may never see him again, she shares a final goodbye before making her choice. Before they are separated, Marcus asks Emma to uncover the truth behind Max Freaks and expose whoever is really controlling the organization. Moments later, Marcus is knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds himself tied up and surrounded by the aftermath of the massacre. Then the story delivers one final twist. Marcus discovers footage revealing that Abby was never actually suffocating inside the coffin. The entire rescue was staged. Abby has been the fanatical Max Freak supporter all along. She was the one who came up with the idea of infiltrating Scare Campaign by applying for the role of their ghost actress. Once she became part of the crew, she learned every detail of their production plans. She then provided Max Freaks with the filming location, the schedule, and the perfect opportunity to launch their attack. Realizing the truth, Marcus can do nothing but accept his fate. Soon afterward, he is burned alive. Meanwhile, Emma and Abby have already escaped in the van. Believing they still have time, Emma focuses on reaching the police and getting help before it is too late. She remains completely unaware of the truth sitting right beside her, but then she notices a small security monitor inside the vehicle. As she watches the footage, the final pieces fall into place. At last, Emma realizes that Abby is the obsessed Max Freaks follower who orchestrated the entire slaughter of the Scare Campaign crew from the very beginning. So the moral of the story is, if your horror prank needs 3 plot twists, a fake killer, a real killer, and a secret fan club, maybe just start a theater group like you originally planned.